Right now, on a beach somewhere in the dark, a baby sea turtle is breaking out of its shell, digging up through the sand and crawling toward the ocean. It is minutes old. There is no parent anywhere. No one to follow. No one to show it the way. And yet it turns, without hesitation, toward the water, drags itself into the waves, and starts swimming out into an ocean that is thousands of miles wide. It will cross an entire sea. And then, years later, as a full-grown adult, it will come back. Not to the same coastline, to the same beach. The exact stretch of sand it was born on, found again across an ocean, by an animal that left it as a hatchling and never saw it again. How? It didn't memorize landmarks. It was minutes old. It didn't follow a map. It can't see the far side of the ocean. The answer is that the turtle is using a sense you do not have. It can feel the earth itself. Our planet is wrapped in a magnetic field, an invisible web of lines running from pole to pole, and that field is slightly different at every single point on the globe. Every beach has its own magnetic signature, like a coordinate, and the sea turtle reads it. When it hatched, it imprinted on the magnetic fingerprint of its home beach, and years later, somewhere out in open water, it feels its way back to that exact value. It is navigating by something we cannot see, cannot hear, and cannot feel. A sixth sense, and it is far from the only animal that has one. For most of human history, this was impossible to even imagine, because we built our entire picture of the world out of 5 senses: sight, sound, smell, taste, touch. We assumed that was the full toolkit, that an animal's world was just a dimmer or sharper version of ours. But the more carefully scientists looked, the more they kept finding senses that have no human equivalent at all. Whole channels of information pouring into other animals every second that we are completely blind to. Take the European robin, a small, ordinary garden bird that migrates hundreds of miles every year and somehow never gets lost. In the 1970s, researchers Wolfgang and Roswitha Wilczko proved that robins navigate using the Earth's magnetic field. But the how turned out to be almost unbelievable. The leading explanation is that robins don't feel the magnetic field. They see it, there's a light-sensitive molecule in the robin's eye, and when light hits it, a quantum reaction happens that is subtly affected by the direction of the magnetic field around the bird, which means the field may appear to the robin as a kind of visual overlay, a pattern of light and shadow laid across the world, shifting as it turns its head. The bird looks at the sky and sees direction itself, and researchers proved how delicate this is in a striking way. When they exposed robins to faint, man-made radio interference, the kind leaking from ordinary electronics, the birds completely lost their sense of direction. Block that one quiet sense, and a bird that has navigated for millions of years suddenly has no idea which way is north. Now, you might think this is exotic, something reserved for turtles and migrating birds, animals doing extraordinary journeys. It isn't. It might be sitting in your living room. In 2013, a team of researchers led by Heineck Berta did something nobody had bothered to do before. They watched dogs go to the bathroom. Thousands of times, 70 dogs, nearly 2,000 recorded events measured against the daily state of the Earth's magnetic field. And they found something genuinely strange. When the magnetic field was calm and stable, dogs preferred to position their bodies along the north-south magnetic axis to relieve themselves. They were lining up with the planet's magnetic field like a living compass needle, almost certainly without any awareness that they were doing it. Your dog may be quietly sensing the magnetic structure of the Earth in the middle of the most ordinary moment imaginable. We just never thought to look. And it goes beyond magnetism. Slip underwater, and there's an entirely different hidden sense at work. Sharks and rays can detect electricity. Every living thing, every beating heart and twitching muscle gives off a faint electrical field. And sharks are covered in hundreds of tiny jelly-filled pores, mostly around the snout, that can pick up those fields with staggering sensitivity. A shark can detect electrical signals so weak they're measured in billionths of a volt. This is how a shark can find a fish buried completely under the sand, in total darkness with no sight and no smell to go on. It isn't hunting the fish's body. It's hunting the electricity of the fish being alive. To a shark, every heartbeat in the water is a glow in the dark. So step back and think about what this actually means. There is a layer of reality, several layers that are real, that are physically present all around you right now, and that you will go your entire life without ever perceiving. The magnetic field is in this room. Electrical fields are humming through the air. You feel none of it, but a robin on the windowsill might be seeing the magnetic field as plainly as you see color. And here, we run into the same wall that haunts everything in animal cognition. We can prove the sense exists. We can measure it, disrupt it, map exactly how it works. What we cannot do is imagine what it is like to have it. You cannot picture seeing magnetism because you have nothing to compare it to, no memory of it, no word for it. The turtle's experience of crossing an ocean by feel is as locked away from us as color would be to someone who had never once seen. And it isn't only the giants of the ocean. Some of the smallest creatures alive are tapping into these hidden channels too. Bumblebees, it turns out, can sense electricity. Flowers carry a faint negative electric charge, while a bee in flight builds up a positive one. As the bee approaches, it can feel the tiny electric field between itself and the bloom, and that field even tells it whether another bee has recently visited and drained the nectar. The bee reads the flower's charge like a sign in a shop window flipping between open and empty, all through a sense we didn't even know existed until a few years ago. An insect with a brain smaller than a grain of rice is running electrical reconnaissance on a flower. And the journeys this sense makes possible are almost impossible to believe. Consider the bar-tailed Godwit, a shorebird about the size of a pigeon. Every year it flies from Alaska to New Zealand, not in stages, not stopping to rest on islands along the way, in one single, continuous flight. It crosses the entire Pacific Ocean, more than 11,000 kilometers of open water, without landing once, without eating, without sleeping in any way we'd recognize for 8 or 9 days straight. One tracked bird flew over 13,000 kilometers nonstop. There is no land beneath it for almost the whole journey, nothing to navigate by, no landmark, no coastline, just water in every direction and sky above. And it arrives. It finds a specific group of islands on the far side of the planet, dead on course, guided by senses reading the sun, the stars, and the magnetic field of the Earth, woven together into a navigation system that makes our own technology look clumsy. Which brings us back to that hatchling on the beach in the dark, the one that was minutes old, alone, and somehow already knew which way to go. We used to think it was instinct in the dull sense of the word, a blind reflex, an animal stumbling toward the water by luck. It isn't luck. That turtle is reading a signal written across the whole planet, a magnetic map laid down by the molten core of the Earth, and it imprinted on its one tiny corner of that map before it had even seen the sea. Years later, after a journey of thousands of miles, after a life we cannot follow, it feels its way back to the exact coordinate where its life began. So the honest answer to whether animals have a sixth sense is that the question barely goes far enough. They have senses we don't, plural, perceiving entire dimensions of the world that are completely closed to us. The magnetic field that guides the turtle and the robin, the electric glow of life that the shark hunts by. Whole channels of reality, present everywhere, all the time, that human beings walked right past for our entire history because we simply assumed our 5 senses were the whole story. We weren't seeing the full world. We were never seeing the full world. And all around us in the ocean and the sky and curled up asleep on the floor, other animals have been quietly reading the parts we can't the entire time.